Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple other tips that will help you make collages in Photoshop. So, one important thing that we can use is the folder function on our layers panel. So down here, it says create a new group. Well, I said folder because that's the icon, but it's technically a group. And inside the group, I can put different elements. So let's say that I want to have multiple copies of these hands. So I'm just going to hit Command J a couple times um, so that I have lots of different hands. Command T is the shortcut for changing the size of things or rotating it. Let's just say this is sort of the basic idea for my collage, that I've got these hands repeated throughout. Okay, and that's a lot of hand layers, right? I've got uh, 4 or 5. So it can get kind of messy in your Photoshop document if you've just got a bunch of layers hanging out. So what I can do is add them to a group. So I'm gonna click on the bottom one, hold down Shift and click the top so that they are all highlighted. And then I'm just gonna drag it into this group. And you can see they sort of moved over a little bit. And I can collapse this so that I can hide those layers. I can also turn them all on and off. Um, and this just sort of helps me keep things organized. I can call this hands. As you get more complicated in your collaging, you could have lots of different groups with different elements in them, and it just helps you keep track of them. It keeps your Photoshop layer like a little bit neater. And then the other thing too is if I wanted to add an adjustment layer to that whole folder, I could do that. So let's say I wanted more contrast on the hands. Again, if I click this button, it's just going to apply to this layer below. But because these are in a group, that means it's actually going to apply to all of these layers, which is really helpful. So if I turn up the contrast, maybe I turn up the brightness just so we can really see, that is now affecting all of those hands, right? Whereas if I had done that with just one layer, I wouldn't be able to get all of the hands changed. So layer groups are really helpful. So another thing that I like to use for collage is blending modes. Those are up here. So if I click on my layer, I can just sort of start to um, toggle over these, and you're going to see how it changes the image. So what it's doing is changing how the top layer is interacting with what's below it. This is just like a really nice way to sort of blend things together. And I think it helps uh, create a more cohesive collage. And there's not really a right or wrong in terms of which one you want to use. I don't normally use ones like this that are so very intense. Looking for things maybe more like overlay, lighten, screen, things like that. Um, I can also click on this whole folder and change everything. So if I wanted everything to be lightened, so that's another positive of the groups. Uh, but let's just change one for now. Let's try overlay. So you can see it looks a little bit different right here where these two are layering over each other. Another really helpful thing for collaging is opacity. So that's right here. So that changes how much you can see through something. So this is 100% opacity, meaning it's completely opaque. And then when you start moving it down, it starts to become more translucent. Again, this can be really helpful in sort of just making things look more cohesive. Another thing that I really like to use in collaging is drop shadow. So the thing about collaging in Photoshop is that you're working in a two-dimensional space, but we're trying to create depth always, right? Like the last thing we want is for our image to look flat. So if you double click on a layer, you're going to get this layer style menu, and then you can click on drop shadow, and then you can change it from here. So we're working on this hand right now. So I can change the distance so we can see it's further away. I can change how dark it is. I can change the angle of it, anything. Now, once you decide like a distance, an angle, an opacity, that kind of thing, if you apply a drop shadow to anything else in the document, it's going to have the same settings. So I'm not able to change the direction of my drop shadow because we want it to look realistic, right? So let's just say I'm going to add it to all of them. I could also just add it to this as a whole, the whole group, and then I can do it to all of them at once. But maybe I just want it on a couple. And so you can see that automatically just makes the image look deeper. Now, this is kind of like a wild composition because I'm not really trying to make a specific collage. I'm just showing you guys how these tools work. But this is just an idea of what this might look like. And then you can also change, again, the blending mode if you want. Okay. Um, just another couple tips that are helpful. Some keyboard shortcuts. So Command J is going to copy things. So if I ever wanted to make more hands, I could do that by just copying this file or this folder rather, or group. If I just hit delete, that deletes the layer. Command T allows you to change the scale of things. And you can see there's a blending mode on this, so it's starting to interact with things differently. I'm going to actually just put this back to normal. And then also you can just drag and drop your layers so you can move what is in front of things. And then also remember, I can use this layer mask. So let's say this image is right here, but I actually want it to look like it's behind this set of hands. First of all, I could just move it right to the bottom so that it's behind this one. But then maybe when I do that, I decide that I want to get rid of this little part right here. So I'm going to click on my layer mask, use my tool, my paintbrush, make sure that black is in front so that I can erase or mask out rather this portion. Remember, we're always trying to work in a way that's non-destructive, right? So we're not doing anything, we're never doing anything in Photoshop that we can't undo. And then Command minus zooms out and Command plus zooms in. If you're zoomed in really far and you want to move around here, you can just use your mouse pad to track, but you can also just hit the space bar and then that will let you click and move around. Command 0 will bring your image out to fill the screen, but you're able to see all of it. So those are some of my basic techniques for collaging. Being able to organize your Photoshop document in a way that you know where things are in the future is really helpful. You might actually end up bringing over other elements. So for example, let's say I wanted to use this picture too. So I can do this in a couple ways. I could mask this out first, or I could just bring it over. If I want to just drag this into my original document, I'm going to make sure that I'm on the move tool. I'm going to click and hold, drag over to my other image, keep holding, and then let go when I get here. And now I can move this around. It went right, it just kind of dropped itself in here, which I don't hate. It's a little bit confusing to be in this group, but I don't mind the way that it looks. Let's say that I want to get rid of some places on here, right? Like I want to mask out some stuff. Remember, I'm just going to click this button down here that adds a layer mask, and then I can go in with my tool and I can start removing stuff. Up here, you can change the hardness of your brush. So if you make it softer, it's going to have a nice fuzzy edge to it. If you make it harder, it's going to be a more defined edge. And then the bracket key allows you to make these bigger and smaller. So maybe I just want to let some things come through, but not all. And then again, if I do something I don't like and I want to bring it back, I just switch this to white and I can go through here again. Another thing that I will add is if you decide to use the selection tool on something. So I'm just going to bring in another layer of this so that I can do this from scratch. So now this is not inside of my hands thing, which is what I want. So let's say I just want to select um, part of this, and I'm just going to, again, do this really roughly. Time. Once that's selected and I have the marching ants, which is this black and white layer or black and white selection that's moving, I can hit select and mask. And that's going to allow me to change a couple things. So I can smooth out my selection. I can feather my selection. So this is going to make it a lot softer. If you can see my selection here, like on the right side, is really clean and not feathered. If I move this up, it's going to make it softer. I can also shift the edge out or in, so that can account for any like mistakes that you made. Or if you just want to cut off part of your selection, then hit OK. And then I can just click on the mask button from there. So you can see that I have a little bit of a softer edge going on here because I soften that. And that can just help sort of clean up any like weird editing that you did, or weird selecting rather. Yeah, and make sure you're saving your document as you go.